Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to go through a trade breakdown with you guys. So I took a trade on SPX this week. I did post a live trade on Instagram. However, I'm going to go through the trade breakdown as well as Bookmap. Now, a lot of you have been asking me to do a follow-up video on Bookmap just to go through how I utilize it on a day-to-day basis because I do use Bookmap on a day-to-day basis. So I'll go through that as well. Now, I will say with all of my trades, whether I'm trading SPX or SPY or I'm trading any other ticker, I do always pay attention to Bookmap, and I do think it's a really good easy way to identify order flow, and it's a good tool to have. So I just wanted to make a follow-up video for those of you that just wanted to see me utilize it while I'm trading throughout the day. Also, I do just want to add that I know I've been MIA on YouTube over the past month. I was traveling, however, I'm back. And after this, I know you guys have been asking a lot about my trading setup. I will post that video this week as well, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, as always, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so this trade I took on 3/27 on Thursday with SPX. So I'm gonna kind of go through what the trading plan was for this. Like I said, I did post a live trade on Instagram, so you guys can check that out if you'd like. So I'm just gonna go through the recap here. Now, I was watching SPX on this day, and you can see here, so this was 326 into 327, SPX had gapped up. So SPX gapped up from 52.03, which was the previous day low, all the way up to around 52.26. Okay, so to the upside, SPX had opened up into that 52.36 level. The previous day high was also around 52.36, so I had an entry for calls on SPX above 52.36 and an entry for puts on SPX below 52.25. The reason why I did 52.25 and not 52.26 is because 52.25 was the previous level of support on SPX, so that is a more significant level. If I were to take 52.26, my first profit target would have to be 52.25 at this point because that's the next level down. So this risk to reward would not make sense, which is always why I wait for the next more significant level on a gap fill instead of taking the initial gap fill level. For the most part, everyone says that I enter late, but it's just to be a lot safer that it is indeed filling that gap down. At the same time, if we go ahead and look at ES futures here, I wanted to see ES clear this downside trend line and its VWAP. So the VWAP is the purple line. So you can see the downside trend line was from the previous day low, touched once in the pre-market and after hours, touched again in the pre-market. So it was a 3-touch trend line here on ES futures. So I wanted to see ES clear the trend line for SPX puts. And then at the same time here, you can see NASDAQ also had a smaller trend line here in the pre-market that I created, 1, 2. So I wanted to see the NASDAQ also clear that downside trend line and its VWAP for puts. So I want to see everything in sync. I always want to see both futures in sync with one another prior to me taking any position. Also on this day with SPX, we did have news, and this was Wednesday the 27th, not Thursday. We did have news on SPX, and we had news on the overall market at 9:45 and 10 a.m. So I was waiting until 10 a.m. before I took a move. And you can see prior to 10 a.m., we really didn't have any really significant movement, and at this time SPX had double topped here at that previous day high. So you can see 1, 2 touch double top. So I was anticipating SPX to potentially make a move down. Now overall, you could have entered at the rejection of this play on the double top once it cleared that 9 EMA. However, overall the past couple of weeks, market has been a little bit shitty in a way, so I had wanted to wait for stronger price action, stronger price direction to the downside prior to me entering, which is why I entered at 52.25, and I know a lot of people are going to ask, so that's why I wanted to just confirm why I entered when I entered this position. So I entered SPX puts at 10:01 here once this candle broke through 52.25. That was after the news came out, and the reason why I entered at 10, and I want to show you guys something that I also watch on Bookmap. So if we look here, so you can start to see, this is the recording of SPX, and you can start to see, so this is called Market Pulse. I mentioned this a few videos ago. It's called volume pressure. It's through Market Pulse, and it just shows you volume on ES, NASDAQ, or whatever ticker that you're watching. And as you guys can see, this little white line shows the average volume on the day, and this is the 70% line. Whenever volume on either side goes above that line, it usually signifies there's strong selling pressure or strong buying pressure. So I wanted to see volume increase above this line. And as you guys can see, as SPX is coming down, approaching the 50.25 level, it's also holding that 21 EMA. So I have mentioned this as well, is that I like to trade SPX puts if it's trending below its EMAs, and calls if it's trending above its EMAs. If it's trending above its EMAs, I usually wait until it breaks those EMAs before I enter puts. So you can see here as it comes down, it's not only holding that EMA, but we're not getting strong selling pressure coming in on SPX just yet. Also, if we go ahead and look at ES's Bookmap here, so this is what I was watching on ES's Bookmap. ES did have some sellers sitting at 52.85 into around 52.82. So I wanted to see it clear that 52.82 kind of wall before we made a move down. So as you guys can see down here, this is 10 a.m. and this is 10:02 when I entered. So at 10 a.m., ES started to fill the orders sitting at 52.83. We start to see a little bit of a bounce, but nothing too significant. Rejected, and then we ended up getting the move down all the way down. And the next level that I had on ES futures, which had strong buyers sitting, was 52.74. So overall on Bookmap, my target on ES was 52.74, as that was the next level below 52.83 where I saw significant buyers sitting. So you can see it ended up holding the 52.25 level here. You can see it was holding that 21 EMA and 52.25. So if you had entered at 52.26 or 52.28, you would have had to take some profit at that level. So it just didn't make sense to enter at 52.26 once the gap started, because it ended up bouncing anyways. So now we're getting into that 10 a.m. candle, and watch what happens to these sellers here on Market Pulse. We start to see some buyers stepping in, but nothing too significant here. It's not crossing that 70% marker just yet on either side. Still waiting. So I ended up entering SPX puts at 10:01. And let's see, you'll see right here, it's still the 10 a.m. candle on this candle here. We're starting to see some sellers pick up. There it goes. Sellers start to pick up, and that's when we break 52.25 and get into the gap fill here. Sellers really picking up here on SPX. This is when I entered SPX puts. Once I started to see sellers cross this line, at that point, ES Futures was also filling those orders at 52.83 on Bookmap. So it confirmed that indeed there is selling pressure there. Buyers are not stepping up. Sellers are there, held below 52.25. At this point, I had entered SPX puts. First target down on SPX was 52.20, 52.15, 52.10, and then the end of the gap at 52.03. I did take most of my profit at 52.20 and then 52.15. I only had runners after that because I'll show you exactly why. So we can see ES is still holding that selling pressure above that 70% marker. So I scaled out at 10:02. At the end of the 10:02 candle, I scaled out some more of my profit at 10:04. Once this next candle opens up, and then 10:10 and 10:15 were my other exits on this position. So as you can see, this 10:02 candle holding nicely, really nice into that first profit target. Quick 2-minute scalp down. We got a 5-point move on SPX. Sellers were there, and if you look here, just want to show you guys this video before I break it down. Let's see when this next 2-minute candle pulls in. Still holding pretty well. We're starting to see some buying pressure step in here. So it's struggling at that 52.20. So we want to see how this next candle opens up. Sellers still trying to push out those buyers. You can see here, just looking at this volume pressure, nothing else, and SPX's price action. And there we go, pushes past 52.20. Those sellers come in. I exit at 10:02. So like I said, on this 10:02 candle, it ended up pushing all the way into my second profit target. So I scaled out most of my position at 10:02 and 10:04. And then I had scaled out some more at 10:10, and then my runners at 10:15. And if we go into, so this is the 10 candle here, pushes back down. I scaled another 10% at the 10:10 candle, only because at this point when it started to push down on this 10:10 candle, approaching the 52.15, and ES was also approaching 52.74, look at the sellers. There's not a lot of significant sellers, and buyers are starting to pick up. So that's what made me want to exit another 10%. I had 80% here, another 10% here, and then my 10% runners I ended up breaking even on. But you can see here the difference in the selling pressure as it's pushing down on this move versus the initial move down. It wasn't as strong, and at that point, ES had been holding a level of support. So if we look here, look at 1004 on ES. So this is Bookmap on ES here at 1004. Look at where it approached. So this was 1002 into the 1002 candle. Still no heavy buying pressure here on Bookmap. This was a clean move from 10 a.m. when it cleared those buyers at 52.83. It was a clean move down. No reason for you to exit until the end of that 1002 candle. We start to see some buying pressure. Still nothing too significant. And look at what happens. Comes down to the 52.74 and we get a bounce. That is where we started to see strong buyers sitting at that level at 52.74 on ES futures, and we saw a pullback, and that is where it ended up pulling back. And if you go ahead and look here on ES at 10 o'clock, it broke the trend line, it broke its VWAP, started to make the move down, and look at where it bounced on this 5-minute candle. Okay, exactly at 52.74. Okay, so Bookmap had a perfect target on ES. We had significant buyers sitting at 52.74. That was the final target I had on ES futures. Like I said, I exited 80% of position towards the end of this 1002 candle just because I hit almost both of my profit targets. I scaled out some more at 1010 on this candle because I started to see ES approaching that 52.74 level and it was struggling to clear. And then the rest of it, I ended up exiting at 1015 on this candle once it broke my stop of 52.20, and I exited my runners at that point as well. Okay, and at the same time, if we go ahead and look at 10 a.m. on NASDAQ futures, NASDAQ had cleared its trend line before ES, so it cleared the trend line at around 940. But I wanted to see ES clear as well and clear its VWAP. NASDAQ was a little bit weaker on this day, but overall, NASDAQ had a clean move down as well. ES had that move, and SPX ended up filling some of the gap, if not all, which is why when you see SPX have a gap, you always want to have profit targets on the way down or up, and those profit targets are going to be levels of resistance or support. And recently, my profit targets have really been dependent on ES because I've been able to catch more of the move. So because ES didn't have any levels on Bookmap until 52.74 from 52.83, it was a really clean move down. There was no reason for me to exit until the bottom of this candle here, where I saw the bottom of the candle on ES futures. And you also want to make sure that you are setting profit targets, because what happens is if sellers are not significant enough, if there's not enough selling pressure, you'll start to see bounces. So you don't want to get caught in a bounce on a play like this. You want to lock profit at it as it makes the move down. And that's why Bookmap for me has been so helpful, because I'm able to see that. I'm able to see where buyers are stepping in, whether I'm using volume pressure or whether I'm using the Bookmap itself and looking at order flow. It's really easy to identify levels where we could see potential rejections or potential bounces. If you're struggling with understanding level 2 or times in sales, it's a little bit easier to look at through Bookmap. And if you look at ES overall on the day, so this is overall day of Bookmap on ES. So you can see main level here was the 52.74. We saw buyers sitting, and then below 52.74, we started to see a wall. So this is what you identify as a wall. So it's a wall of buyers sitting from 52.71 down to 52.69 here on Bookmap on ES. And if we go ahead and look at ES's low of day, was not able to clear that 52.71 level, 52.70 level, ended up holding that level into the rest of the day, and we kind of ended up being choppy on Thursday for the rest of the day. But we got that initial move down, perfect rejection here, perfect support here. We started to get a little bit of a bounce, but below 52.74, we only had about a 4-point move down until it cleared that, until it approached another wall. So if you were, for example, let's say you missed the initial move down. So if you missed that initial move down, you would wait for ES to then clear. If you're trading SPY or SPX and you want to take low of day, you would wait for ES to clear this wall, because ES from 52.74, the next level down is 52.71. That's not a good risk to reward. It only has 3 points. So you taking SPX at low of day, you would have to understand that you would have to lock profit as ES approaches this wall of buyers, because if it doesn't clear, we end up getting a bounce. And you always want to wait when you see a wall like this, start to clear for those orders start filling and heavy selling pressure to come or buying pressure to come, depending on what side you're on, before you enter the position. If it's approaching the wall like this, 90% of the time you're going to see some type of rejection or bounce before we end up getting the fill of those orders and the clear of that wall. So always make sure, if you guys are using Bookmap, that you're scrolling out. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm looking at Bookmap on the 2-minute time frame or 5-minute time frame, but I always scroll out to see what the overall picture on futures, whether it's NASDAQ, ES, I'm trading NVIDIA, Tesla, whatever the case may be. I always scroll out so I can see where there's significant walls sitting for these tickers, so that I understand when I am in a position that these are the levels that I need to look out for. These are the levels where there's significant buyers or sellers waiting to sell or purchase the position. So you can see here was never able to clear that wall at 52.71. We ended up bouncing, tried to test it twice. You can see 1, 2 tests, wasn't able to clear, and then we ended up chopping around for the rest of the day. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful and this was a good example. Pretty clean, straightforward play, but I really wanted to go through this because I was able to kind of screenshot Bookmap and show you guys what I was looking for. You also see the volume pressure on it and how I've been incorporating it into my day-to-day trading, whether I'm trading SPX or any other ticker, as well as this was just a clean play on SPX, what I wait for and what I look for on both futures before I end up taking a play. So hopefully this was helpful. I made around $16,000 on this play. I do just want to say that I know I post a lot of wins on YouTube because nobody ever watches the losses on YouTube, which is why I always post my wins. However, I do post my losses on Instagram, and the week of Fed, I was red on the week, so I just want to have like full transparency with you guys. I did struggle the week of Fed. We had Fed speaking, I think 2 days, the Fed meeting, and then the announcement. I did end up having a red week. This past week, where we had Friday off, has been a better week. I was a lot more disciplined with my trading. I pulled back in the way that I was taking trades, which is why you can see I was a lot more confident in this play overall, and I waited for the setup to clear 52.25. If it was any other week, I probably would have entered at 52.26, just being a little too aggressive. So I pulled back, honed in on discipline, really waited, was patient with the market, waited for a move, waited until after 10 a.m. and the data came out to take a move. So just keep that in mind. I know I show you guys a lot of wins. Most of the time I am profitable in the market, obviously. However, there are even the most experienced traders, especially those weeks where we have Fed speaking, we do struggle as well, just like you guys. So I did struggle that week, and that was the first red week I've had this year. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and comment them down below. All of the things that I talked about are linked in the description box as well, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.